For the ninth labor of Heracles, Eurystheus asked for the girdle of Hippolyta, the Amazon queen. Eurystheus wanted the belt for his daughter. It was a leather belt that had been given to her by Ares, the war god, because she was the best warrior of all the Amazons. She wore this belt across her chest and used it to carry her sword and spear. Plus, the belt projected a magical aura of protection around her. The girdle was a belt that women wore above their hips. To loosen it was to offer oneself. To take it forcibly was rape. And that's from our textbook at 394. So this was more of a sexual deed than any of the other labors of Heracles. Heracles knew that he would not be able to fight the Amazons by himself, so he invited some companions along with him to help him either fight or persuade them to give the belt. The Amazons were an all-female tribe of warriors who hated and distrusted men, so of course the task was supposed to be impossible, like all of the other labors. There was no way for Heracles and a small band of supporters to defeat a whole nation of dedicated fighters. Heracles knew he couldn't defeat the Amazons in battle, so he made friends with the queen, and she gave him the belt as a gift. Heracles charms Hippolyta into gladly offering him the belt. Some of the versions that I saw while I was researching said that Heracles either charmed Hippolyta with a great feat of strength, or she was just impressed with how he carried himself, his lordly appearance. It doesn't necessarily state specifically what kind of great feat it was, but just that she was charmed into go ahead and giving the belt to him, without him really doing anything, which angered Hera, which is, Hera was already mad at Heracles because he was Zeus's son. So she disguised herself as an Amazon and ran through the city proclaiming that Heracles had abducted Hippolyta, or was planning to abduct Hippolyta. So the Amazons attacked Heracles, which made Heracles think that Hippolyta had been plotting this the entire time, trying to trick him and into killing him, which made Heracles strangle Hippolyta and take the belt from her, and then they had to fight their way back through to the boat, and then they sailed away, and then he was able to give the girdle to Eurystheus. So here are some paintings, and then the pottery on the other page was one of the most famous portrayals of Heracles and Hippolyta with the girdle. The one on the far right is one of the most famous, with the Amazons fighting Heracles and his companions. And then the painting from 1927 where they're fighting. The sculpture of Heracles and Hippolyta makes it look more like he is forcing it, when really that's not what the legends say. So there's several different paintings that we see, and renditions of Heracles taking the girdle. So that's all about Heracles and the girdle. It's a pretty short labor, but the main thing was that it was supposed to be impossible because it was a man-hating society, that he was not supposed to be able to charm. So, and then I'm going to talk about Amazons and how they have been portrayed in the last millennium, because in Greek mythology they came up several times as the tribe of women haters, and so it did change a little bit as time went on. So Amazons in the last millennium. So medieval Europe is one of the, besides Greek, I'm going to start with medieval Europe. The Amazons were just seen as monstrous, weird races outside the realms of Christendom. along with the species of griffins, mouthless men, and giant-footed dudes who could shelter themselves from the sun under their progenitor's shoes. Legend and reality collided when it came to little explored parts of the world, and the Amazons were considered just as bizarre, say, with men as with dogs' heads. Medieval female warriors like Joan of Arc enter the history books in art in around 1400, and it parallels the Amazons. So we see strong women warriors who, in full armor, but were somewhat feminine, which is how Joan of Arc was portrayed. One of the most formidable literary creations of the medieval period, the Book of the City of Ladies by Christine de Pincian, uses the stories of the Amazons as one of the founding narratives of her female citadel, prove the worth and value of women in society. And then it continued to change into the 1700s, where the Amazons were associated with feminism. So they did tie into feminism, which could have been complementary or not. With the rise of the greater literacy across Europe and the printing press, women were making a big splash in the writing world, particularly when defending their own rights. And some people were not having it. In former times, the famous Dr. Samuel Johnson wrote, "A female writer, like a female warrior, was considered a bit of an eccentric being, but like the female warrior, but the revolution of years has now produced a generation of the Amazons of the pen, who, with the spirit of their predecessors, has set masculine tyranny at defiance, asserted their claim to the regions of science, and seemed resolved to contest the usurpation of virility. It was not meant to be praised through literary and proto-feminist women of the time, from Mary Wollstonecraft to Emile de Chilette, probably would have taken it as such. The Amazons were also being used for another purpose. Women were increasingly seeking out fashionable ensembles to ride horses, and Amazonian costumes were the label for the thing they wore. Weirdly enough, though, the Amazons were the most famous for having reportedly invented trousers, so they didn't have to ride side saddle, while women wouldn't stop doing that for another few hundred years. Okay. So in the 1800s, one of the women, the society made up of women were the Dahomey tribe in Africa. They were infamously lethal female warriors, what is now called Benin in Africa, who received their label in the 19th century from astonished French colonial occupiers. Though the name referenced the fact that the women were brilliant warriors, also referenced that the Amazons were considered exotic and other, so the name wasn't exactly a compliment. They were very ruthless, and it absolutely astonished them. So, in the 1900s, they did again change. They were part of the feminist movement as well. And they were more associated with circus performers and strong women. At the beginning of the 20th century, Amazon was no longer a name given to horse riders or spies. It referred to women who worked in the circus. It could be including wrestling or lifting several men in one bound. One of the most famous strong women of the period was known as the Lady Hercules instead. That wasn't the whole story, though. As the battle for female equality became more heated across the US and Europe, Amazons became both symbolic. The German writer Isa Langte's comedy Amazonian championed the rights of women, and physical. The Amazonian women were actually seen as a kind of archetype for the ideal German female body in the Weimar Republic. So it was pushing more towards feminine or equality. And then Katharine Hepburn also became famous for her role in The Warrior's Husband, which premiered on Broadway in 1933. And her grand entrance meant she had to jump down some stairs carrying a dead stag while wearing the glorious outfit seen above. On the right. However, beyond that brilliant image, the warrior-like appeal of the Amazons been used by the newest fight for women's equality, the pursuit of suffrage. Suffragette Amazons, as one writer called them in 1912, were the more militant of the suffragette movement, willing to go to jail and create havoc for the sake of their beliefs. Though again, the term wasn't always used as praise. Newspapers reported on the tendency of suffragettes to shriek and fight like Amazons, with horror in 1907. The Great War in 1914, the idea took on a new and charming meaning. A rumor spread in 1915 that the British suffragette were forming an Amazon battalion and was going to France to help with allies, which unfortunately was false. And then into the later 20th century, into the middle of the 20th century, then we see Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, the comic books Wonder Woman was created in 1941 by American psychologist and writer William Moulton Marston and artist Harry G. Peter. Wonder Woman first appeared in 1941 in All-Star Comics number 8, a comic book published in DC Comics. In 1942, she was featured in DC's Sensation Comics and Wonder Woman comic book series. Noteworthy creators who have worked on Wonder Woman comics include the American writer and illustrator George Perez and the American writers Greg Rucka and Gail Simone. So that was in 1941. And then and the story of that Wonder Woman portrays is Wonder Woman began her life as Princess Diana on the fictional island of Themyscira, also called Paradise Island. Themyscira is inhabited by Amazons, an all-female warrior race. Diana's mother, Queen Hippolyta, sculpted the baby Diana from clay. The Greek goddess Aphrodite gave her life. Later comics changed Diana's origin, making the Greek god Zeus her father, which made her part goddess. Diana entered man's world, the world outside Themyscira, after United States intelligence officer Steve Trevor crashed his plane on the island. Diana then entered a contest with her fellow Amazons and won the right to return Trevor to man's world, where she became a crime fighter and ambassador for her people in America. In an ordinary work life as a U.S. Army nurse, intelligence officer, and other roles, she is known as Diana Prince. So, those are the comic books. In the 1974, ABC and Warner Brothers aired a Wonder Woman TV film starring Kathy Lee Crosby, which you see down at the bottom. It resembled the comic book series from 1968 to 1973, meaning it did not feature the traditional costumes and storylines that we now associate with Wonder Woman. The ratings were respectable but not wondrous, which made ABC decide not to pick up the pilot. They did not give up on the idea, however. ABC developed another TV film pilot, the new original Wonder Woman, which aired in 1975. The film was directed by Leonard Horn and starred Linda Carter, who is the Wonder Woman that we see in the series, and more closely matched the original character created by William Moulton Marston down to the World War II setting. The second film was more successful and immediately led to the production of the series of Wonder Woman. The TV series Wonder Woman premiered on ABC in 1975, with Linda Carter playing the lead role. The beginning of the series stayed pretty close to the comic books, but had to make some changes in order to appeal to the audience of the time. The series was set in World War II, and by the third season, ratings had dropped enough that the series was pulled. In 2016, DC revived Wonder Woman and in film with Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, which we see her here. In the final fight scene with a creature made from Zod's body, a man from Superman's home planet, Krypton, and Lex Luthor, Princess Diana, aka Wonder Woman, shows up to help Batman and Superman fight the monster. Her godlike powers helped the trio defeat the creature. Her powers include super strength, super speed, and extreme durability. There's also an indication that while Wonder Woman can be hurt, she also has Wolverine-like healing factor, and she seems to have the ability to release gigantic baths of energy under extreme circumstances, which comes from her gauntlets that she wears. DC has released 3 more films with Wonder Woman: Wonder Woman 2017, Justice League 2017, and Wonder Woman 1984 in 2020. So in the Wonder Woman 2017 film, the daughter of Queen Hippolyta, Diana is raised on the hidden island of Thermesia, home to the Amazons, which is what the comic books first portrayed. Women warriors created by the Olympian gods to protect mankind. Hippolyta explains their history to Diana, including how Ares became jealous of humanity and orchestrated its destruction. When the other gods attempted to stop him, Ares killed all but Zeus, who used the last of his power to wound Ares and force his retreat. For dying, Zeus left the Amazons a weapon, the God Killer, to prepare them for his return. Hippolyta reluctantly agrees to let her sister, General Antiope, train Diana as a warrior. In 1918, Diana, now a young woman, rescues U.S. pilot Captain Steve Trevor when his plane crashes off the Themysciran coast. The island is soon invaded by German soldiers who had been pursuing Steve. The Amazons kill the crew, but Antiope sacrificed herself to save Diana. So instead of in World War II, it's set in World War I. Steve is interrogated with a lasso of Hestia and reveals that a great war is consuming the outside world, and that he is an Allied spy. He has stolen a notebook from a German chief chemist, Dr. Isabel Moreau, who is attempting to engineer a deadlier form of mustard gas under the orders of General Erich Ludendorff. Believing Ares to be responsible for the war, Diana arms herself with the God Killer sword, the lasso, and armor before leaving Themyscira with Steve to locate and stop Ares for good. London, they deliver Moreau's notebook to the Supreme War Council, where Sir Patrick Morgan is trying to negotiate an armistice with Germany. Diana translates Moreau's notes, revealing that the Germans plan to release the deadly gas at the Western Front. Although forbidden by his commander to act, Steve, with secret funding from Morgan, recruits Moroccan spy Samir, Scottish marksman Charlie, and Native American smuggler Chief Napi to help prevent the gas from being released. The team reaches the front of Belgium. Diana goes alone through no man's land and captures the enemy trench, liberating the nearby village of Veld with the aid of Allied forces. The team briefly celebrates, taking a photo in the village where Diana and Steve fall in love. The team learns that a gala will be held in nearby German high command. Steve and Diana separately infiltrate the party. Steve intends to locate the gas and destroy it, and Diana hopes to kill Ludendorff, believing that he is Ares. Steve stops her to avoid jeopardizing the mission, but this allows Ludendorff to unleash the gas on Veld, killing its inhabitants. Blaming Steve for intervening, Diana pursues Ludendorff to a base where the gas is being loaded into a bomber aircraft bound for London. Diana fights and kills him, but is confused and disillusioned, but death does not stop the war. Sir Patrick appears and reveals himself as Ares. He tells Diana that although he has subtly given humans ideas and inspiration, it is ultimately their decision to resort to violence, as they're inherently corrupt. When Diana attempts to kill Ares with the God Killer sword, he destroys it, telling Diana that as a daughter of Zeus and Hippolyta, she herself is the God Killer. He fails to persuade Diana to help him destroy mankind, in order to restore paradise to Earth. While the two battle, Steve's team destroys Moreau's laboratory. Steve hijacks and pilots the bomber carrying the poison to a safe altitude and detonates it, blowing up the plane himself. Ares attempts to direct Diana's rage and grief at will at Steve's death by convincing her to kill Moreau, but the memories of her experience with Steve cause her to realize that humans have good within them. She spares Moreau and directs Ares' lightning into him, killing him for good. So that's Wonder Woman. Lots of mythological references throughout. Justice League and Wonder Woman 1984 do not. Justice League is more about an ancient evil Steppenwolf, which when Diana kind of leads with Aquaman and Cyborg, Superman, Batman, who wants to bring back the unity, killing the world. And Wonder Woman 1984 follows Diana when the world is set into chaos, when an Aztec dreamstone is found, which grant wishes while taking the life force of the wisher. So it's more Aztecian. So the only film in recent times that really focuses on mythology is Wonder Woman, is the first Wonder Woman in 2017.